Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video. And finally, the Acolyte is over. It feels like a long time this show has come out. I think because of the amount of episodes that there were. But it's also just a constant drag to go through. So, a while back I talked about the Acolyte being a show that achieves completely nothing. I think even when Disney promoted this show, they always mentioned it was not about good or bad, it's about power, this, that, and the other. Just spewing nonsense, really, to promote this show. So I kind of went over with my own curiosity to see how this show really stacked up. And 3 episodes in, it was not great. And now, fast forwarded now, the season is over, and I could really just say now it's more of a relief the show is over than actually feeling any sort of sense that this show has actually gotten any better. Now, before I talk into the show, I'm going to really talk about the compliment for this show. And there really is one, because I am going to kind of nitpick the show quite a bit. But the lightsaber fights for me were the best. I think it's the best that we've seen Disney do since they acquired the Star Wars brand. I mean, the lightsaber fights have been very well choreographed. There's really good move sets that the actors use, and it was impressive. I actually think it was really good and visually pleasing for once. It's no comparison to the prequel trilogy at all. I don't really think anyone's going to somehow come up with this conclusion, fist pump in the air to say that, yeah, Disney got it right with the lightsaber fights. But they actually did a good job for this one for once. But the main problems that I have for this show is really just how boring it is. Now, the story of the Acolyte is all over the place. It doesn't really have a centered focus of how they could really have delivered this story. And majority of the time you watch this series, it's mostly just dialogue and just poor writing. That's just kind of drags for so much. I mean, I talked about the moments when it comes to the lightsaber fights, but that's really like the only real moments you really get. Apart from that, it's really just, unwanted mystery that doesn't really describe how things happen, or it's just long-winded dialogue that just vomits out for the sake of doing it, but it doesn't really correlate to how things happen for any sort of reason. It's just a complete trope of a series. So I really think this show's real issues is just really the amount of dialogue that this show will just spill out just to pad for time, and it doesn't really explain any of the storyline at all, and it just kind of gets conflated with all these sort of points throughout each episode that doesn't really mesh very well. So I'm going to give the best account that I could describe this show. Now, I just want to let you know that I may not get every single point right about this show, but I also highly doubt that even the most enthusiastic entertainment critic is most likely not going to get things right about this show either. So, the show really centers around two main characters, Osha and May. And Osha and May are twin sisters, and the show starts with the first episode where a Jedi Knight called Indara goes to a bar and she gets killed by May. Now, upon getting killed by May, it's alerted a Jedi who wanted to know who was responsible for the killing of Indara, and they find out that potentially Osha is responsible for Indara's death. Now, they believe Osha is responsible because they found that May is believed to be killed. And I'm going to get to that point later because it does go back sequences. But they try and, make Osha responsible for the killing of Indara, but Osha believes that she's not responsible. So they try and go on to this sort of whole investigation to find out who really killed Indara, and they then get stumbled across to find out that it was May. And upon finding that it was May, she's pretty much in lead and in control of another character called Kamir. And Kamir is pretty much I assume, the bad Sith, I guess. But they don't really make it out to be. It's a really weird concept of how this show is brought up. So Khmer kind of assigns May into these tasks to kill other Jedi, such as Master Torbin and eventually Kelnaka. And upon killing Kelnaka, the Jedi that's also being led with Master Sol and with Osha, they stumble and try and been able to find May, and they get into a fight with Khmer that kind of breaks out. And then after that, Osha and May, they stumbled across each other again. Khmer takes Osha whilst Master Sol is with May. And then all of a sudden now, Khmer controls Osha and reads her thoughts that she could see into the future, and she has and apparently could see the visions of killing Master Sol. But then May is also with Master Sol and tries to escape along to Bendrock, where the characters Osha and May are from, and how they were brought up by Mother Anastasia and the witches, and how they have these sort of undescribed force-powered abilities in the same way that Anakin Skywalker was betrayed. So it's pretty much just centered around that, and it kind of just goes back and forth between the two sisters, between one good and one bad, and their powers and all that stuff. But the problem is that they don't really make any sense of it, and everything just kind of just spills out with various different sort of synopsis throughout the show, and really, really few moments really ever happen. Majority of this show, when you actually do watch it, is just purely dialogue, and that's really where it goes. Really, the only moments, like I said, really do stand out is the lightsaber battles, and that's kind of it. And it's probably the best I've seen lightsaber battles have been done by since Disney acquired Star Wars. But then, realistically, it's not really saying much to really try and convince viewers that this is really a worthwhile show. But I'm also going to hit the point of the last episode. So the last episode just has some very, very weird things that happen that make zero sense to me. So one of the weird things that doesn't make sense to me is that when May has the visions of killing Master Sol, it's really hard to understand why that was the case. And the weird thing that happens, even throughout that whole vision, apparently Osha kills Sol. So I know this is a bit of a spoiler that I'm kind of saying that Master Sol dies, but it really just doesn't make sense, because pretty much every single Jedi that is in the hunt for these two sisters, they're already dead. I mean, it's like, it doesn't really kind of make any sense. And the thing is, as well, they're also doing a second season of this, so really, I don't know who's gonna really try and be the next main characters into it. Now, there was a little teaser at the end where Venestara, I think her name is. She's pretty much the green character Jedi as well. That's the best description I can have. But she pretty much stumbles across Master Yoda, who kind of talks about the divergence of the Force as well. And now Khmer's with Osha. And now Khmer's also erased Osha's memory. But I also think in doing so has also erased May's memory, because now May can't remember what happened, that she couldn't recall having a twin sister, getting tongue twisted. So it doesn't really make sense about how these things are going to play out in this series. Now, it doesn't really fill me with a lot of enthusiasm they're going to be doing a second season. I really don't know what they're going to do to continue along with the story. My best guess is that they're going to use Khmer as the Sith and to train Osha as the apprentice. And I think they are being in control potentially by Darth Plagueis, who does make a cameo role. But it's just a cameo appearance. It doesn't really kind of, send any messages of what's going to happen. I think people are just going to make predictions of what's going to happen. Now, I think, in my opinion, I do think this is the messier narrative of the Star Wars franchise. Now, I don't know whether in itself it's a bad one, because I think, like I said, there are moments in the show that does redeem itself, mostly the lightsaber battles. I mean, moments like in Book of Boba Fett were very, very rare to stumble across, until maybe they had to bring the Mandalorian into it. But even still, using Book of Boba Fett to bring the Mandalorian back kind of ruined the Mandalorian in itself too. So that show itself, those two shows I would say were really hard to watch, and they just completely ran out of any sort of storyline to give. I think The Acolyte tries to have a story, but just can't really seem to understand what it wants to give. And they really just play on with plot holes and just unexplained plot points that don't really bring any connection into it. And it also really doesn't really make sense of really understanding good or bad. My best understanding of the bad is really just Khmer and just he's using OSHA, but again, it's just not well conveyed. So I think this is potentially up there as potentially some of the worst Star Wars series I've watched. Maybe not the worst, but it's definitely there. So really, if I had to give like a little rating for this show, I probably would say this show gets a 3 out of 10. So yeah, that's just pretty much what I think of this show. It's just hard to watch and it's not very good. I will also state I really struggled staying up for this show. And it's more of an insult because the fact that majority of the episodes for this series only last around at least half an hour. I mean, the last episode lasted 45 minutes, and it was a constant struggle of my patience to really just sit through that show. I honestly felt like I had lapses of concentration where I did fall asleep, and I had to rewind back to the points where I actually could recall my memory of what happened. It was just really difficult. But yeah, that's what I think of The Acolyte. If you have any thoughts about it, then feel free to give your thoughts. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.